Hello.
Hopefully, I'm.
Welcome to another Before Coffee. We're here, ready to find out what wacky things are going on this Wednesday. So let's get started, I guess. It's gonna work.
Beep, 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 beep. Those fake teletype sounds.
Oh, right, of course.
Beep, 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 beep.
Okay.
Hot off the wire.
Today on Before Coffee, outrageous MEPs condemn pesticide companies for withholding toxicity data.
Michigan charges 16 in false elector scheme to overturn the 2020 election.
Ukraine thought UK had too rosy a view of Putin, Blair was told when PM.
Atlanta man attempts to rob nail salon, gets ignored by everyone.
Tensions in Thailand over vote on new prime minister, fear of unrest.
Alaskan man inadvertently films his own drowning on a glacial lake with helmet GoPro. Today, well, it didn't happen today, but we're reporting on it today on Wednesday, Weird Wednesday, July 19th, 2023 on Before Coffee. Try to stay awake for another.
We are here. I do not know whether to reset the audio, but there we go. We are here on another exciting day where I try to figure out what's going on. There we go. Okay, right. Let's start our first news story here with the MEPs who've been lied to by the companies. Wow. Who would have thought? A surprise.
No.
This is from Damien Carrington, the environment editor at The Guardian. The pesticide companies Bayer and Syngenta have been excoriated in a European Parliament hearing after failing to disclose studies on the brain toxicity of their products. Ooh, brain toxicity, my favorite kind. European regulators said the companies had breached legal obligations and behaved unethically. MEPs questioning executives for the companies said their actions had been outrageous and represented a scandal. The companies rejected the accusations and said they had provided all relevant studies. Nobody said we had to provide studies on the brain. The withholding of 9 brain toxicity studies from the European regulators over the last 20 years was revealed by Guardian in June, reporting findings from Swedish academics. They discovered that these toxicity studies had been submitted to the US pesticide regulator, but not to the EU authorities. These studies are performed in order to protect our children and grandchildren from the effects on brain development, said Dr. Axel Mee of the Stockholm University, who led the research. He told a special hearing in the European Parliament on Tuesday, if a company decides by themselves which studies to disclose and which ones to withhold, it is obvious that the decisions by the regulatory authorities become unreliable. He said risk management decisions had been delayed by 18 years in one case. Wow, that's a long delay. Officials from the European Commission, the European Food Standards Agency, EFSA, and the European Chemicals Agency, ECHA, all of which had a role in pesticide regulation, thanked me and his colleague Professor Christina Rudin, for their important and valuable work. We considered the withholding of the studies a breach of the legal obligations of those companies and a matter of very serious concern, said Claire Burry, the Commission's Deputy Director General for Health and Food Safety. All studies are essential to have available to regulate, irrespective of the outcome of them, said Sharon McInnes of the ECHA. It helps us make a robust assessment, ultimately decide citizens and the environment, how to ultimately protect citizens and the environment. Bernhard URL, or Earl, sorry, his last name is URL, at EFSA called the company's behavior unethical and said industry judges the relevance of toxicity studies in a way that we would most likely not agree with. Yeah, this is irrelevant. How likely is it that these people are going to be licking our pesticides? Not very, so this toxicity report of consuming pesticides, not relevant at all. No one's going to be eating pesticide by the spoonful, so it doesn't matter. We don't need to report this. The power to impose penalties on companies for breaching regulatory requirements lies with the individual member states of the EU and not with the Commission, unlike in cases of breaches of competition law and data protection, for example. However, no country is known to have ever imposed such a penalty. Rudin has said, we were not able to identify any legal risk to the company that the company runs when withholding toxicity study from the EU authorities. Companies are allowed to make money at the expense of public health protection. Dr. Christina Alia from Bayer told the hearing, Bayer has always acted responsibly and transparently to provide the required data for complete and safety assessment of our substances. We have to admit all relevant data that this is what we did. We submitted all relevant data, yes, all relevant. That's the key word here. What they decide is relevant. Dr. Alexander Brand from Syngenta said, we do not submit the toxicity studies at the time to EU regulators because they were not mandatory. If we can get away with it, we'll do it. No, that's not what they said. We determined they did not provide any new information. Our company complies with the rules. We have nothing to hide. Alright, good job. You hired 2 people to say the most politically neutral statements possible. New rules came into force in 2021, requiring any new pesticide study by a company to report to the EU when it's commissioned. However, Me said that this did not solve the problem of studies withheld in the past for pesticides still in use. What differences the withheld study would have made to regulations disclosed at the start of the process it's disputed. Me said it was plausible in some cases the lower pesticide exposure limits could have been imposed years earlier, but Burry said none would have been a decisive factor in regulatory discussions, and the company said they would have no effect. Me said his research could point to far wider withholding of toxicity studies on thousands of chemicals. We have looked at a tiny fraction of all available pesticide toxicity studies, which in turn are only a small fraction of all toxicity studies. We have no reason to believe that the problem that we have identified is restricted to that tiny fraction, he said. So, wow, pesticides are dangerous. Just if you're near pesticides, wear all the things possible. Don't trust the companies that tell you it's safe, because they're probably not safe, because you have to do studies over 30 years for some of these pesticides, and then you find out, oh, I grew an extra lung because I was breathing straight pesticides this whole time.
Yeah, and the company will look at a study and they'll go, well, how does this affect profits?
Exactly.
And that's a story?
Yeah, that's the end of the story.
Checking in with chicanery at the highest levels of corporate structure. And in the United States, in election news, we're still trying to settle this little silliness we had in 2020, which seems like was 100 years ago, but it was 3 years ago. The Michigan Attorney General, it's a story from New York Times. Danny Hakeem, Alexandra Berzon, and Maggie Astor. The Michigan Attorney General announced felony charges on Tuesday against 16 Republicans for falsely portraying themselves as electors from the state in an effort to overturn Trump's defeat in the 2020 election there. Each of the defendants was charged with 8 felony counts, including forgery and conspiracy to commit forgery, an accusation they had signed documents attesting falsely that they were Michigan's duly elected, qualified electors for president and vice president. They were duly elected and qualified electors, and each of the defendants knew it. They weren't duly elected and qualified electors, and each of the defendants knew it. Attorney General Dana Nessel, a Democrat, said in announcing the charges. They carried out these actions with the hope of belief that the electoral votes in Michigan's 2020 election would be awarded to the candidate of their choosing instead of the candidate that Michigan voters actually chose. The charges, the first against false electors in a sprawling scheme to hand the electoral votes to swing states won by Joseph R. Biden Jr., add to the rapidly developing legal peril for Mr. Trump and those who helped him try to overturn the results of the election. They came the same day that Mr. Trump and federal prosecutors had told him that he is the target for the investigation of the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol and other schemes that he and his allies used to try to maintain power. Those charged in Michigan included Marshawn Maddox, 55, who went on to serve for a time as the co-chair of the Michigan Republican Party, because let's just put a criminal in there. Ms. Maddox, who has close ties to former President Trump, and is married to Matt Maddox, a state representative, accused Ms. Nessel of a personal vendetta. No, I don't think so. This is part of a national coordinated effort to stop Mr. Trump, she added. You mean me trying to fake being an elector and scheming to take over the Capitol of Michigan? That was perfectly legal. Sorry, I'm paraphrasing. Right, Blake, the lawyer representative Maya Rodriguez, 64, another elector who's a lawyer, said in an interview, "I am very disappointed in the Attorney General's office." That's a terrible accent. "This is all political, obviously. If they want to charge my client, how come they didn't charge Trump and the Trump lawyers? Then he sent her to discuss with the delegates what to do. Maybe they will." While a similar investigation in Atlanta has pulled in witnesses from across the country and has led to legal battles with Trump himself, thus far the Michigan inquiry's focus on residents of the state. It is not clear whether that will remain the case. This remains an ongoing investigation. Our department has not ruled out potential charges against additional defendants, Ms. Nessel said Tuesday of her inquiry. Others among electors who were charged include Kathy Burden, 70, a member of the Republican National Committee, and Marianne Sheridan, 69, the state's party grassroots vice chair. Yeah, grassroots involves faking that your party won the election when you lost resoundingly. Documents released Tuesday by Ms. Nessel's office laid out a scheme in which many of the Trump electors convened at the Republican Party state headquarters on December 14, 2020, after being turned away from the state capitol. The real electors who were certified by the Board of State Canvassers did meet at the Capitol as required by law, yet the Republican group falsely claimed that they were the rightful electors and had met at the Capitol. Michigan is one of 3 states, along with Georgia and Arizona, where there are ongoing investigations relating to use of false electors by the Trump team in 2020. Another investigation in Michigan being conducted by a special prosecutor concerns a network of right-wing activists, including Matthew DePorno, let's call him that, a Republican who ran unsuccessfully against Ms. Nessel last year, who are suspected of breaching voting machines in search of evidence of election fraud. Well, if we can't find evidence, we're going to invent some by destroying voting machines. In total, allies of Mr. Trump pushed to convene slates of fake electors in 7 swing states that Mr. Biden won. The plan was to create illusion of dispute over which states the fake Trump ones or the real Biden ones are legitimate, and have members of Congress and Vice President Pence certify the fake Trump states. Because who needs democracy, right? Let's just fuse everybody with bullshit. Hey, what a strategy. Yeah, you want to vote for that. I want to have a little conversation with you. I just want to see if there's anything inside your head. Ms. Nessel began investigating the matter in early 2021, but referred to the Justice Department in January 22. She said at the time, while there were grounds to bring criminal charges because there appeared to be a coordinated effort between the Republican parties in various different states, we think this is a matter that is best investigated by potentially prosecuted by the feds. A few months later, she posted on Twitter, "If we don't hold the people involved in alternate elector scheme accountable, there's literally nothing to stop them from doing this again because they will have no repercussions for it." Well, yeah. And what is taking so long? Since Ms. Nessel, in recent weeks, investigators have collected evidence and interviewed witnesses who have been affiliated with the state party. Since Ms. Nessel reopened her investigation, federal prosecutors have become increasingly active in Michigan and appear to be treading similar ground. A number of elections officials and lawmakers, including Secretary of State Joycelyn Benson, have reportedly been interviewed, but in recent months by a federal prosecutor. Both the federal Michigan investigations are part of a reckoning over the conspiracy theories Mr. Trump and his allies have promoted about the election. Your story.
Wait, you're telling me that, like, if you do illegal stuff, like pretend to be somebody or not, that you're breaking the law and somebody can investigate you and then arrest you for it? No, it's just a big conspiracy against Trump, right? It has nothing to do with them breaking the law.
Yeah, apparently you can't just have an election and ignore it and then just appoint some people that you decided predetermined are going to represent your state.
Yeah.
You apparently can't do that. That's illegal. Imagine that, man. Somebody wanting to punish people for breaking the law. Oh yeah, your story.
Okay, in my story, let's talk about the Ukraine and the UK and their past relationship under Blair, which was their MP in the 2000s. This is from Caroline Davis on The Guardian. Ukrainians believe the West rubbished them and had too rosy a view of the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Tony Blair was warned as Ukraine sought his support for the EU membership 10 years after it won independence in 1991, newly released papers revealed. As Ukraine set a goal of European vocation, Jack Straw, then Foreign Secretary, instead proposed the idea of special neighborhood status for Ukraine, Belarus, and Moldova. But Blair's special advisor on Europe, Roger Little, asked the then PM to consider if it was really fair to lump them together with Belarus and Moldova, writing, "This idea could go down pretty badly with Ukrainians," paper released by the National Archives reveal. The UK's ambassador in Kyiv, Roland Smith, was also critical, questioning if it was because we thought Ukrainians are not really Europeans. I did that because there's a question mark. Are not really Europeans? Belarus is Europe's last dictatorship, while Moldova is Europe's poorest country, and the government does not control a significant part of its territory. Ukraine is a flawed democracy, not a dictatorship, Smith wrote. Like most democracies. I'm just saying, if you're going to use "it's a flawed democracy" as a reason to not let somebody join NATO, it's like, okay, then everyone has to leave NATO. Nobody has a perfect democracy. What the hell are you talking about? Humans exist, hence it's flawed. That's the rule, okay? Only in theory are things perfect. He added, if we do think EU membership for Ukraine is ruled out, I think we have to ask ourselves why exactly we are prepared to countenance such a long-term goal for, among others, Albanians, Bulgarians, Romanians, and the West Balkans, but not for Ukraine. Because Ukrainians are not really Europeans? Because countries which are part of the Soviet Union for longer than Baltic states were inaccurately infected with Soviet mentality? Because we think that the Ukraine ought to go back to Russia where she belongs? The question is whether we recognize the Ukrainians' right to aspire. I mean, if you look at actual history of Ukraine, which I have looked at myself, they've always been a separate tribe of people. Even before Russia Federation was a thing, right? Even during the Tsar years, Ukrainians have always been a separate tribe of people that have totally different similar cultural things to Russians, but totally different. That's like saying Wisconsin people and Minnesota people are the same people. They're not, okay? Minnesota has a very specific accent. Wisconsin does not. Well, they have a different accent. I'm just saying.
Our football team wins, okay? Yeah. Let's just...
I'm just thinking of, like, let's merge two states. Like, even in America, right? Let's merge two states together would not work. And that's what they're trying to say with Ukraine. Oh, let's just merge Russia and Ukraine together. That's not going to work. They're separate states. Culturally.
I think we should merge it.
Sorry?
I think we should merge the Dakotas. Why is there two Dakotas?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Unnecessary practice.
The Ukrainians are depressed. However, most of Europe and the new U.S. administration is running them down. We have too rosy a view of Putin, who according to them is clever, presentable power politician, but no democratic hero. And we rubbish Ukraine. This was a briefing to Blair by Little. Ukraine's former president Leonid Kuchma made a direct and personal plea to Tony Blair to support the country's EU membership ambitions in 2022. Sorry, 2002. I've gone into the future. 2002, writing, "Knowing you as a sincere friend of Ukraine, I pin great hopes on your personal support in this exceptionally important issue." Little advised Blair that strengthening Ukraine's shaky democracy and economy increased stability on the EU's future eastern border and would act as a formidable barrier to any resurgence of Russian imperialism to the west. And that's exactly what's happened. Ukraine is currently a huge barrier against Russian imperialism. Yet Britain had enjoyed a less solicitous relationship with Ukraine than the French and Germans. Kuchma may not be likable, but he is an important player, well plugged in his immediate neighbors. He meets Putin once every 4 to 6 weeks, Little wrote. While the French president Jacques Chirac had laid on a magnificent state banquet for Kuchma, and the German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder had a big annual summit with him, Britain had neglected Ukraine in terms of senior level political contact, Little wrote. Yes, the Ukrainians want to build a special relationship with us if only we would show more interest. So, just more proof that us Northwestern Europeans were like, and the US, which is also, I guess, in the West, we're just like, huh? Ukraine can see the future coming and we're not going to help them? Yeah, that's what we decided. Oh, well, there's more important things happening. We have to do the war on terror or something.
We tried, man. We tried. Rudy
No, you didn't
Giuliani.
try. That's the fact here. You didn't try. You were like, we'll wait till you guys are ready for us. Go away.
Rudy Giuliani got in the way, man. I'm telling you. Okay,
Your story.
weird news. And weird news is from HuffingtonPost.com. David Moye. Life imitating Better Call Saul. Atlanta man attempts to rob nail salon and gets ignored by everyone. But did he try to drink the cucumber water? Cucumber water for customer only. A man attempted to rob an Atlanta nail salon last week. Didn't go as planned. This is a very short story. After the patrons basically ignored him. The identified suspect with his hand in a bag as if he were, this is from a video. And the unidentified suspect with his hand in a bag as if he were holding a weapon stormed into the Nail First Salon Monday demanding money, according to Atlanta Fox affiliate WGA-TV. Although the man shouted, "Everybody down, give me all your money." Surveillance video shows he was ignored by both customers and employees. The salon owner even decided it was okay to answer the phone during the attempted robbery while the customer casually stood up to go outside. Although the subject snatched her phone as she walked outside. Eventually, the humiliation appeared to be too much for the suspect, who left the salon in a silver-colored sedan, according to law enforcement. Les Barrow, a regular customer who was in the salon at the time of the attempted robbery, told WAGA that the owner was indeed scared of the would-be robber, but he didn't want to react because he didn't want his customers to worry. They come first. So this is what his reaction was: to calm everybody down, keep everybody relaxed, Barrow told the news salon. The suspect was still in the loose as of Monday afternoon. This was about a week ago, this story, but it's funny.
That's probably the first time ever that the customer is always right actually worked in a positive way, right? Oh, we must keep the customers calm. This is indeed a nail salon, and people come here to relax and get their nails, or it was a hair or nail salon.
As a nail salon, it's more like, you wait, take number, take number, more like that.
Exactly. Like, people come here to sit down, get their nails done, and leave, okay? They are not here for some sort of enactment of a hold-up situation, so I'm just gonna pretend it's not happening.
I'm gonna go ahead and say the fumes got to him.
Sorry, I was high on freaking nail polish. What's happening?
Oh boy. I came in there for a robbery, then I forgot, man. All right, your story.
All right, in a weirdly fitting transition here, kind of. I know it's technically Vietnamese people who are usually working at nail salons because of, we can go into the history of why Vietnamese people work at nail salons, but we don't have time for that. But there is a historical context to why, and it's some white lady was helping Vietnamese women get jobs, and she was like, here, just open a nail salon, so all of them just have been doing that, right? But in a fitting Asian transition here, tensions in Thailand.
Over-explaining a joke is not a joke.
Yeah. From nail salon to I don't know, lady boys. We've got Thailand here, getting a new prime minister, and maybe not going to go so well, according to I guess people. I don't know who fears unrest. We'll find out. Thai MPs and senators will vote today whether Pita Limjaroenrat can call herself the country's herself the country's new prime minister. The opposition's candidate was the big favorite among the Thai people during the elections. To become the new prime minister, the leader of the Move Forward party needs more than half of the vote. Pita can achieve this in parliament because his party has the majority there, but senators are expected to thwart his election. They are all appointed by army and support the established order. A week ago, a vote was also taken on Pita's premiership. He didn't get enough votes then. Only a handful of senators voted in favor. Pita has offered to step aside to make room for a candidate from the second chosen opposition party if he doesn't get enough support. With this, Pita hopes that the opposition will be allowed to provide a prime minister after all. Pita is also facing a lawsuit. Thailand's constitutional court today agreed to provisionally suspend him as a member of parliament. According to the court, Pita may have violated electoral law. He would have shares in media company, which is forbidden by politicians. We'll just sell the shares, I don't know, or give them to somebody else. Pita himself denies breaking the law. His supporters see this as a way for the establishment to silence the opposition. As long as there's no ruling, Pita could still become prime minister. In May, Thai people made their voices heard for the country's pro-democracy opposition. After nearly 2 decades of military coups and political instability, they want change. It is the first election in 9 years, a period in which the army was in power after a coup. Pita's Progressive Move Forward is a party of mainly highly educated young people who are openly opposed to heavy punishments for insulting the royal family. Supporters of this party hope that the influence of the military in politics will come to an end. The Thai see the old conservative forces in the country are trying to resist change. The atmosphere is tense. There's a lot of uncertainty about how Pita's supporters will react if he is not elected prime minister. The Move Forward party comes from a group of young people who organized large demonstrations a few years ago, which were suppressed by the army. There is a great fear that this could lead to unrest on the streets. Last week, there was also demonstrations after the failed vote. Entrepreneurs are angry about the insecurity caused by this political situation because they say street protests are bad for our image and they could cost us money. It is tourist season in Thailand, and about 20% of the economy is based on tourism. Wait a minute. Do people not understand how protests work? They are supposed to disrupt. The best time to protest would be in the height of tourism season, because then all the tourists will be like, what the hell's going on in Thailand? And then everyone will know about what's happening in Thailand because you're disrupting the normal things that are supposed to be happening, right? I really hate it when people are like, don't protest, you're going to disrupt lives. That's the point of protests. You're supposed to disrupt. Yeah. Congratulations, you figured out why we want to protest. Okay, anyways, that's my short story on Thailand, and hopefully their pro-democracy will work, just because nobody likes a military-run government. Militaries don't make the same decisions governments make, okay? Militaries are like all about cost and, who can we sacrifice to get our greater goal. Machiavellian ideology for me is not something I want in my government. I don't want them to be like, I'll let all the poor people die. They're not important anyways. I don't want that. So hopefully we'll hear some news about this later. I'll keep my eye out for it. And on to your next story.
All right. In sad news, and weird sad news, a man films his own drowning. This is
Oh.
from the AP. Becky Borner, an Alaska man, inadvertently, this is out of Juneau, Alaska. Alaska man inadvertently filmed his own drowning on a glacial lake with a GoPro camera mounted on his helmet. But authorities who recovered the camera have not yet found his body, officials said Tuesday. Alaska State Troopers said teams would continue to search for Mendenhall Lake for the body of Paul Rodriguez Jr., 43 of Juneau. Troopers said a helmet with a camera attached to it was confirmed to have belonged to Rodriguez, was recording on July 11th when his kayak overturned and went into the water. The recording continued, showing that the kayak overturned due to a strong current coming from the glacier. Troopers spokesperson Tim Despain said by email. Despain said the helmet was found on the lakeshore. He said it was returned to troopers on Monday. Juneau police on Monday said Rodriguez is believed to have gone missing on July 11th, somewhere in the vicinity of Mendenhall Glacier Recreation Area. Police received a report Sunday from U.S. Forest Service employees that a vehicle had been parked at the recreation area since July 11 and determined that it was registered to Rodriguez. Rodriguez's son, Jaden Rodriguez, said his father was kind-hearted and enjoyed being outdoors, doing activities like fishing, paddleboarding, and snowboarding. Rodriguez also was a gifted photographer, his son said. He said Rodriguez's life changed for the better when he found God, and Rodriguez would often tell him that life is short. He was a good person, he said. According to police, Rodriguez's roommate reported last seeing him on July 10th, and friends said social media post by Rodriguez July 11th showed a kayak on a beach that appeared to be in Nugget Falls, which is the recreation area along the lake. A kayak had been floating unattended in the lake July 11th that police said resembled the one in Rodriguez's post. As authorities put the pieces together, a search got underway. And sad news, but again, we know what happened to him almost precisely because he filmed it.
Oh, so like the footage is like, it's like, oh, he's swimming and then he's like panicking and then it just stops, I'm guessing. And then it's like, oh, that guy just drowned. Right? That kind of footage. Yeah.
Or,
terrible.
There's the thrashing stops and you do nothing.
Terrible.
Okay.
But I guess that's a good thing for GoPros. Technology, in a way, technology has solved this case. Because if he wasn't filming himself, we wouldn't even know he's missing, I guess. Because they found the GoPro and they're like, oh shit, somebody drowned on this. Where's the guy who this belongs to? So.
That's why it's Weird Wednesday and not Good News Day. Because it's weird. Weird, bizarre, and sad.
Okay. Talking about sad stuff, I guess. Home search investigation into the murder of rap legend Tupac has begun. That's right. After, I guess, 30 years... they're finally doing a more in-depth relook at the case of who murdered Tupac. Was it P. Diddy all along? That's one of the theories. That P. Diddy did it. But Nevada authorities have launched a search in connection with the murder of rap legend Tupac 27 years ago. Las Vegas police say a search has been made in Henderson, a suburb about 30 kilometers from Las Vegas, because the investigation into the murder of one of the most famous names in hip-hop history is still ongoing. That's right, they never closed the case. They just... other important things were happening, like white people probably died. I don't know. Let's be honest. Let's be honest here. Some rapper died, who cares? That's kind of how America works. The police could not release any further details. It is not clear what the authorities were looking for. Tupac, whose real name was Tupac Shakur, was shot at a traffic light in Las Vegas in 1996. He died in hospital a few days later. He was 25 years old at the time. No one was ever arrested for the murder. Nevada has no statute of limitations for prosecuting homicides. Detectives have been assigned to the cold case, according to police. It is an unsolved case. Hopefully we can change that, and a police chief told the local media. Yeah, we have actually progressed a lot in technology for even just like DNA tracing and stuff since 96. A lot. So you can actually recreate somebody's entire, like just from a DNA, you can recreate what they might have looked like, right? Oh, they have blonde hair, blue eye, blah, blah, just because they have these markers in their DNA. Shakur is regarded as one of the biggest names of hip-hop has ever produced. He became big in the 90s when the so-called gangster rap was popular. The artist has sold more than 75 million records worldwide and has also starred in films. In 2017, the rapper was posthumously inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That happened on the initiative of his colleague, Snoop Dogg. And last month, the rapper received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. One of his most famous songs is Dear Mama, in which he pays tribute to his mother. His fame was at an all peak during the so-called East Coast-West Coast feud in the mid-1990s. What about the Southwest, man? They never get any rep. That's because there's no rappers in the Southwest. Like, oh yeah, Houston right now has a rap scene, but back then, no. Okay. This is a feud between rappers from the eastern U.S. and the western U.S. Although Shakur was originally from New York, he epitomized I can't say the word.
Epitomized.
The West. My mouth just gave up on saying that word. The feud was mainly between two record labels, Death Row Records from Los Angeles and owned by boss Marion Suge Knight, and Bad Boy Records from New York, owned by Sean Puff Daddy Combs. That's why there's an idea that Puff Daddy got him because they were opposites.
Which he was shot twice.
Shakur was under contract with Death Row, which is funny because he died. Sorry, that's not funny. It's funny now. It's 30 years later. The argument started after Shakur was shot in the lobby of a New York hotel. He accused his former friend and rapper, the notorious B.I.G., who was under contract with Bad Boy, of knowing more about the shooting incident. Shakur was attacked by gunmen in a white Cadillac in 1996 in Las Vegas, along with controversial hip-hop record executive Suge Knight. A few months later, in March 1997, the notorious B.I.G. was also murdered. So it's just interesting. I don't think Shakur was even the target of the attack. I think it was Suge Knight, and Shakur just happened to be in the car as well. And he's the one who died for it. So, unfortunately, very sad. Too young, because Tupac was actually a really influential. They try to kind of always say he wasn't influential because of the gangster rap thing, but he actually wrote a lot of radical political songs about, free our people and he was a feminist as well, famously a feminist. People forget that. He wasn't the typical kind of, misogynist rapper guy. He supported women. Of course, he wrote that song about his mother. So, really great guy. Taken too soon because he was an actual positive influence on the world. So, anyways, enough sad news. On to this day in history.
That article mentioned that he was shot before that. Like he was shot like a year before that, well before that.
They talked about how he was shot in the lobby of a New York hotel. So that's what started the East versus West thing. He was attacked in New York and then later killed in Las Vegas. Yeah.
Don't miss them days at all. What a bunch of nonsense. This day in history. 1333, Scottish forces were defeated by English under King Edward III in the Battle of Halidon Hill. And in 1545, during the Battle of Solent, the Mary Rose, a warship that often served as a flagship for the English fleet, sank in the Strait of the English Channel. The wreck was raised in 1982 and put on display in 2013. So they raised it. There you go. In 1860, Lizzie Borden was born in Fall River, Massachusetts, who was suspected to murder her stepmother and father. Much later. I mean, he wasn't. In 1870, French Emperor Napoleon III declared war on Prussia, beginning the Franco-German War, because he wanted to be his little Napoleon himself. In 1886, Hungarian piano virtuoso and composer Franz Liszt played the piano for the last time in a concert in Luxembourg. 1903, French bicyclist Maurice Guerin won the first Tour de France, which covered 2,428 kilometers or 1,508 miles. In 1922, American Liberal Democrat politician George McGovern, who served as a senator from 1962 to 1980 and was an actual war hero, was born in Avon, South Dakota, and that's day in 1922, so he would be 101. In 1947, Aung San, Burmese nationalist leader, prime minister, was assassinated, otherwise known as being assassinated, in Rangoon, Myanmar, which was now called Yangon. And I believe Myanmar was called Burma at the time. In 1965, American wild animal tamer Clyde Betty, who was known for his fighting act, which was designed to show his courage and mastery of ferocious animals under his control, died at the age of 62. Okay, I thought you were going to say he was eaten by a lion. Too bad. The Summer Olympics opened in Moscow in 1980 on this day, although some 60 countries, including the United States, refused to attend because the Soviet Union was invading another country back then. Yeah, it was Afghanistan was a lucky country on the Wheel of Fortune that year. And 2007, the first episode of Mad Men aired on TV, which is a big milestone for people who like that show. And 2014, American actor James Garner, it's a sad day. American actor James Garner, who played Maverick in the Rockford Files, died at the age of 86. Also in war, wounded in the Korean War. Former Marine wounded in war. And our featured event is 1848. The U.S. women's suffrage movement began. On this day in 1848, the women's suffrage movement in the United States was launched with the opening of the Seneca Falls Convention, which sought to gain certain rights and privileges for women, notably the right to vote. I always like the name suffrage. It always sounds like somebody's in kind of pain, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It sounds like suffering. Why don't they just call it something else? Just make it stop.
It's because I think the idea is that they've been suffering for decades.
Right? Degas was born
hundreds of years we've been suffering. Stop our suffering. Let us vote.
Oh, so it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Edgar Degas, is it Degas? I think it's Degas. Was born on this day, July 19th, 1834 in Paris. In 1871, other birthdays. Vitaly Klitschko, Ukrainian boxer and politician. I think he's a mayor of a town, and his brother's a mayor of another town, right? He was also a boxer.
Yeah.
Klitschko was born in 1971. Howard Schultz, American businessman, was born in 1953, a Starbucks guy. 1922, George McGovern, we covered that. 1860, Lizzie Borden, we covered that. We always covered Degas. Okay, we did all that. Or Degas.
We did everything.
Degas. And what day is it? Woof. It is National Daiquiri Day. So slam them rum drinks. Slam them, I say. National Words with Friends Day. So play that game on your phone to the exclusion of all social activity. National Hot Dog Days, third Wednesday. So stick a hot dog in your big old gob and play Friends with Words. And it's International Retainer Day. So if you've got them braces and your teeth are messed up for whatever reason, and you got a retainer, it's your day. So get it full of peanut butter. I don't know. Go ahead. Okay. Your story.
Well, not my story. It is. Let me do this. Switch here. It is the end of our show here, and for the first time ever, we're gonna do comment of, well, I don't know if the week, but recent user comment, and it is from Party Cowboy on TikTok, who said, "Are they stoned?" So this is stoner news for stoners? I knew it. It seemed like you two just learned how to read, but it was just the weed. And that's been me from the Netherlands, which indeed does have legal marijuana.
Yep, and from Maryland, which also has legal marijuana. And I'm not stoned, I just woke up. That's why it's called Before Coffee. Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Ally, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.